Welcome back to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. And today my guest in the studio is Professor Krzysztof Jabłonka, and we are talking about the early years of Poland, and particularly in these recent episodes, the role of Marshal Pilsudski. Professor, I think we reached the point where this sort of battle, or this sort of coup, if you like, whatever you want to call it, this conflict at least, on May the 20th, in May 1926 began. Could you just say a few words about who was injured in the battle, or what the results were, what sort of happened next?
Niektórzy historycy nazywają to drugą bitwą warszawską.
Some historians call it the Second Battle of Warsaw. Indeed, there were clashes that were often very bloody, but the victims were mainly civilian and resulted from the fact that Piłsudski was simply very enthusiastically welcomed.
Odbijały się od murów i budynków i zabijały tak zwanym rykoszetem.
The streets were full of people, and the bullets unfortunately bounced off the walls and buildings, killing people ricochetically. For this reason, Piłsudski ordered to fight at night, so that innocent people, the civilians, would not die during the day. Hence, there were only 6 military victims on both sides. The rest were civilian victims. A very sinister role was played by the commander of the air forces, who supposedly, it remains unknown until today, murdered one of the pilots who did not want to take off to Warsaw. He personally led the attack and threw the bombs. Back then the bombs were small and were thrown manually. He threw about 10 of these bombs, and each bomb was 15 casualties, because he dropped them wherever there was a large gathering of people. He was filled with hatred, the personal kind. That man was General Włodzimierz Zagórski. After the fights had ended, Piłsudski's supporters kidnapped him and most probably killed him, and to this day it is a mystery of the Second Polish Republic.
Go po prostu porwali, no i gdzieś go zabili, do dzisiaj nie wiemy, stanowi zagadkę II Rzeczpospolitej. Natomiast walki toczyły się wzdłuż głównych ulic, a szczególnie tak zwanego...
However, the fights took place along the streets, as well as along the so-called royal route, leading from the old town to the south of the Belvedere, which was the seat of the president. The government escaped from the Belvedere to Wilanów, the former royal seat, and there the fighting was stopped. Finally, the marshal of the Sejm made the president resign. President Wojciechowski was aggrieved that the military had cheated him. They convinced him that the whole army would stand against Piłsudski, that Piłsudski did not matter at all. It turned out that he did, significantly so. Even if he had lost in Warsaw, all the lands of the borderlands would have stood behind him. Poland would have broken in half, and the Soviet Union was just waiting for that. For the sake of saving their homeland, they surrendered to Piłsudski. Piłsudski showed exceptional graciousness then. There was no revenge. All the dead were buried with the same honors and at the expense of the state. He also uttered the memorable words, "The blood of those who died has soaked into one Polish land. We are all responsible for that. After all, even in the family there are quarrels." None of the officers who stood up against Piłsudski were oppressed, and many played an outstanding role in 1939 in the defense of Poland.
A wielu odegrało wybitną rolę w 1939 roku w obronie Polski.
Now, Professor, interestingly, Pilsudski died 9 years on the 9th anniversary of the coup. How did those 9 years of his rule look in Poland?
Przede wszystkim ograniczono władzę parlamentu.
First of all, the power of the parliament was limited. Until that time, there was a system in Poland which was dubbed the Sejmocracy, when the representatives of the parliament were taking up the direct role of ruling the country. This was a clear violation of the triple division of power. The executive power was then greatly strengthened, and most importantly, Piłsudski never let the army out of his hands again. He was Minister of Military Affairs for the rest of his life. However, he launched Polish diplomacy. From that moment on, we can speak of stability in this field. And finally, he launched a movement that today would be called a non-partisan one. He called it the Non-Partisan Protestant bloc for cooperation with the government. The government needed public support. Very important reforms had to be carried out. Agricultural reform, social reform. People decided to give up the support for their existing parties and to gather within something separate. Indeed, it has to be admitted that this movement reached a majority of the members of parliament, and its representatives were able to dethrone the political parties of the time. Let us remember that parties were still formed in the partitions, and many treated their party, whether workers, peasant, Christian or national, as their homeland. Party life destroyed the unity of the state. This non-partisan movement was to counteract this. Industry developed. At that time, the so-called Central Industrial District was created, located in the center of Poland, far away from Kraków and Warsaw, and a port in Gdynia was built, which is important as it was a port independent of Gdańsk. It was from the port of Gdynia that coal was flowing to England when the English miners were on strike. Here, the basis for Poland's economic independence was laid. Unfortunately, there were huge differences between the western part, the strongly industrialized, the central part, and the eastern part at the end, where there were not even roads. These were the so-called infinite borderlands, areas that were difficult to reach. From here appeared the term division of Poland into Poland A, the better one, Poland B, the one in the middle, and Poland C, which was basically a suburb of Asia. This is how it stayed, unfortunately, until the end of the Second Polish Republic, although a great deal of work has been done, and never in 20 years, in all our history, has so much been done for Poland. If the Second World War hadn't broken out, then around 1940 to 1944, instead of a destroyed Warsaw, we would have had a fantastically functioning metropolis with a very good metro modelled on the British one.
Z bardzo dobrym, wzorowanym na brytyjskim metrem.
Well, Professor, that's been fascinating. Thank you very much for coming to the studio. Thank you for watching Poland Daily History. Join us again when we look at more exciting episodes from the history of Poland.